Have you ever stopped to think about what life was like in India's very first cities? I mean, we're talking about a civilization that was thriving thousands of years ago, a society so advanced it could go toe-to-toe with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, and yet it just vanished, leaving behind this huge mystery. Okay, let's get into it. Just look at this. These aren't just any old rocks. These are the actual bones of a metropolis. You're looking at the incredibly well-planned streets of Dholavira, a city that was just humming with life over 4,000 years ago. It's like a ghost of a forgotten world, and it really begs the question, who were these people, these master builders, these incredible traders and innovators who literally laid the foundation for city life in the Indian subcontinent? Well, to figure that out, we first have to take a step back and ask a more basic question. What even is a civilization? Right. So if we're really going to understand the people who built these places, we kind of need a blueprint. What's the secret sauce? What does it actually take for a group of people to make that incredible leap from a simple village to a great, complex civilization? Let's break down the essential ingredients. So, at its core, a civilization is a society that has, graduated. It's moved beyond just surviving and is now properly thriving. Think of it like this. It's the difference between building a temporary hut and engineering a city with a sewer system. It's all about organizing on a massive scale to create something complex, something built to last. So, what are the key things we should be looking for? So, here's our checklist. First, you need a solid foundation, and that's productive agriculture, enough food to feed everyone. Then, you build on that with people developing all kinds of different skills and crafts. You absolutely need some form of government to keep things organized. And, of course, those well-planned cities we were just talking about. A system of writing is also critical for keeping records and communicating. And what holds it all together? A shared culture, art, customs, beliefs. Finally, the last piece of the puzzle is trade, connecting with the wider world. Now keep this checklist in mind, because as we're about to see, the people of the Indus Valley absolutely nailed every single one. Okay, so we've got our definition. Now let's place these incredible people on the map and on the calendar. Exactly where and when did India's first great urban experiment get started? This timeline is so important because it really puts things into perspective. See, the Indus-Saraswati civilization didn't just pop up in isolation. It was flourishing around 2600 BCE, which means it was a direct contemporary of the pyramid builders in Egypt and the great city-states of Mesopotamia. They were one of the big three superpowers of the Bronze Age. And we're not talking about some small little kingdom here. I mean, look at the sheer scale of this map. This civilization was massive, stretching across a huge area that was fed by two mighty river systems, the Indus, which is still there today, and the now vanished Saraswati. And the fate of that second river, well, that turns out to be a crucial clue in this whole mystery. Now, you'll often hear these people called the Harappans, and you might wonder why that specific name. Well, it's pretty simple, actually. It's because the very first city of theirs that archaeologists discovered way back in the 1920s was a place called Harappa, so the name just stuck. All right, the stage is set, so now let's do it. Let's imagine we can take a walk right through the streets of a typical Harappan city. What would we actually see? What was daily life really like for these ancient city dwellers? The first thing you'd notice is just how unbelievably organized everything is. I mean, these cities were absolute masterclasses in urban planning. They were usually split into two main parts. You had the upper town, also called the citadel, built up on high ground and protected by walls. This was probably for the ruling class and big public buildings. Then, spreading out below it was the much larger lower town, and this is where most people lived and worked, all laid out in an amazing, precise grid of streets. The level of planning, honestly, puts some of our modern cities to shame. So what was fueling these busy cities? Well, a surprisingly modern and healthy diet. They were growing grains like wheat and barley, eating veggies, fruits like bananas, and even using spices like turmeric and ginger. This wasn't just basic farming. This was a sophisticated food system. And here's a mind-blowing fact for you. They were the very first people in all of Eurasia to figure out how to cultivate and weave cotton, a total game changer. Now, these cities were definitely not isolated islands. They were bustling hubs of commerce, plugged into a vast trade network that stretched for thousands of kilometers. These people were true international traders of the ancient world. So, what were they selling to the rest of the world? Well, their skilled artisans were making gorgeous jewelry, ornaments, and these really intricate shell bangles.
They also exported valuable timber from their forests, and of course, their revolutionary new product, cotton. They had valuable goods, and they knew how to market them.
And this is how they proved their stuff was legit. This little thing is a Harappan seal, and it is absolutely brilliant. Think of it as their ancient version of a brand logo, a maiden label, and a tamper-proof security tag all rolled into one. Merchants would press these seals into wet clay on their packages. So when a shipment arrived in a faraway land like Mesopotamia, this seal proved exactly who sent it, and that no one had messed with the goods along the way. Genius, right?
So we have this picture of a prosperous, super organized, technologically advanced civilization. But then, around 1900 BCE, something unthinkable happens. The cities empty out, the trade routes go silent, the writing is forgotten, they just disappear. It's one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. What happened?
Well, the leading theory is a story that sounds eerily familiar to us today: climate change. The evidence suggests that a major global climate shift weakened the life-giving monsoons that they depended on every year. This led to way less rainfall. And then came the knockout blow. The mighty Sarasvati River, a lifeline for so many of their cities, dried up completely. Without water, the agricultural backbone of their entire society collapsed. People were forced to abandon their incredible cities and scatter into smaller, rural villages just to survive.
And as we reflect on their story, this quote from the archaeologist Bibi Lal really just hits the nail on the head. Because think about it, for all their amazing organization and huge cities, we haven't found the kinds of things we see in Egypt or Mesopotamia. There are no gigantic palaces for all-powerful kings, no massive, lavish royal tombs. This strongly suggests their society wasn't built on the exploitation of the many for the benefit of a few, but on mutual accommodation, a remarkably well-balanced community that for centuries found a way for everyone to thrive together.
Their civilization might have vanished, but its legacy is still there, etched into those silent ruins. And it leaves us with a final, really important thought. From their incredible urban planning to their sense of societal balance, what can our own bustling, often chaotic modern cities learn from these master planners of the ancient world? What secrets are they still waiting to teach us?